Alright, today I'm working on this 2008 Ford Escape. It's a hybrid. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. These brakes should be the same whether it's a hybrid or just a regular Ford Escape, but just keep that in mind. So, gotta do the brakes, gotta do both rotors and pads. Really, the rotors are shot. The pads have some decent life left in them, but if your rotors are shot, then might as well do the pads too. So, I guess first question is, if you're not real familiar with how to diagnose if your rotors are bad or not. First off, I mean, you can kind of see on here, I mean, the whole edges are rusted and everything, so this is, you never want to see that. But on top of that, the worst part is that this the actual surface where the pads rub, it's not only grooved, but I can also feel it, and it's wavy. So also when you drive, your rotors are bad if you got a pulsating. So if you go to hit the brakes and it just pulsates to a stop, which this definitely does, your rotors are shot. So otherwise, if it's your pads, usually it's just a squealing or a squeak when you hit the brakes. So that's usually pads. So this, I'm doing rotors, might as well do pads. The pads were only 20 bucks or whatever for the set, so gonna get going on that. As you can tell, I don't know if you're watching this and you're from the South, lucky you, but up here I'm in Indiana, and we have rust. I mean, you can see it all over this thing. So this does have a lot of rust, kind of all over the place, and I just did the driver's side, and I had to beat the crap out of this rotor to get it off. So sometimes you have to do that. We're going to get rid of it anyway, so just got to be careful if you do that. But really, this is a pretty easy job. I got, like I said, the rotors, the pads, and all you really have to do, normally what I do is I take the caliper off, which usually there's a couple caliper bolts. You take that off and that's that. But on this, the caliper bolts are like a hex wrench, and I don't want to deal with that. So actually I couldn't even find a hex wrench for it. So all I'm going to do, there's two regular bolts. And I know the lighting's not perfect here, but there's a bolt at the top and the bottom. They're 18s. Just take those out, and this whole caliper with the bracket will come right off. The only thing you have to do then, actually I'll probably do this first, is take this brace off, which I should be able to do with a pair of pliers. The other side was a little hard to do, but yeah, I'll work on it here in a second when I got both hands, but this should pry right off. So I'm going to take that off first, undo both of those bolts, flip this up, get the new pads on, tie the caliper up, and then I'm going to put the new rotor on. So let's get to work. Alright, before I forget here, this is the old pad. I actually probably shouldn't have taken that off. I should have left it on there, because what I use when you compress that piston in, I use one of these, I don't even know what the heck you'd name this thing. It's just it's the piston compressing tool. But basically all you do is you put the old pad in there, and it sits in there. You wedge this thing in there, and you tighten it until it's all the way decompressed. You can also use like a C-clamp, or I've seen people use pliers and stuff. I've always used this. It's like $5 down at the auto store, and it works perfect. So I've had no issues with it. And I guess I just assumed you guys kind of picked up on this, but the reason why I use the old brake pad, not the new, is because it puts this tool puts a little divot in the pad, and you don't want that on the new pad. So just keep that in mind. Use the old pad for that. And then I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize around the piston, and then up here where the brake pads rub as well. It'll help prevent some squeaking. I also do it on this side, just anywhere where the pads make contact with metal on the caliper. I like to put a little bit of this on there. You can also get just the caliper grease. That works perfectly fine too. Alright, and the new pads are seated in there. They're flush. You shouldn't have to use a lot of force to get them in. If you force them in, you can definitely have issues once you get everything back together, like the brakes rubbing and whatnot. So, you know, sometimes you can get, you know, bad brake pads. I've seen that happen to where, you know, it's just too tight. It doesn't happen too often, but I have seen that. And then most of the time you just gotta, you know, make sure you line it up just right to get it in there. So got that done. I'm gonna see. Oh, that slid off. All right, and then I'm gonna see if I can get this rotor off here. It's seized on there pretty good, so we'll give it a shot here. That off. There's a bunch of rust and buildup all around here. I'm just going to take a wire brush, try to get some of that off, and then I'm going to put some anti-seize on there, so hopefully the next person that has to do this brake job won't have to deal with that. So make sure you spray this down the rotor with brake cleaner. You want to do this, I mean, I do this beforehand because the rotor actually comes with a little film on here that helps with corrosion and whatnot during shipping. So that way when you open the package they're nice and shiny. So however you want to get that off before you know, your brake pads touch them. So I'm gonna just douse the whole rotor in some brake cleaner, and that'll get the caliper back on, and that's pretty much it. One more spray with the brake cleaner, and that's it. And don't freak out. I know when I first started doing brake jobs, this playing the rotor would freak me out. So that's just because, I mean, it's just sitting on your studs, and then the pads aren't making good contact. So what you want to do is, before you drive this, make sure when you set it down, hit the brakes a few times before you go to pull it out the garage. Otherwise the brakes aren't going to stop you very well. So you can maybe hit something, or at least maybe make your butt pucker a little. So make sure you hit the brakes a few times, compress the pistons, and then on this, it's weird, I've never seen this before, but this has an overflow at the top of the brake fluid. That's all brake fluid on the ground. So when I went to look, I'm like, well, what's leaking up there? I saw that overflow tube. So what I'm going to do is make sure to compress these pistons all the way by hitting the brakes. Then once it's good, I'm going to drive it real quick, come back, and I'm going to fill the brake fluid reservoir with brake fluid. So make sure, I'm assuming this is going to be .3, it should be, but whatever it says on the cap, make sure you use that. But that's it. Save yourself some money, do this, and do it yourself and learn a thing or two. So thanks for watching. If this helped you out, give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, I post kind of random videos about a whole bunch of different cars. I work on them all the time, so I'm always kind of filming a thing here or there when I got the time. So all right, thanks again.